Sometimes the most frightening discoveries aren't made in laboratories or deep space. They're made right in your own office, hiding behind polite smiles and water cooler conversations. The security footage played on repeat on Marcus Thompson's laptop screen, his hands trembling as he rewound it for the fourth time. In the grainy black and white video, a group of his senior executives, people he'd trusted for years, stood in the break room laughing. Their words, captured by the camera's microphone, made his stomach turn. Can you believe Thompson actually thinks he earned that CEO position? Everyone knows it's just corporate America trying to look diverse. The date stamp showed this was filmed just 3 hours ago, while he was supposedly at a conference in Detroit. Except he wasn't in Detroit. He was sitting right here, in the building's reception area, wearing a borrowed security uniform and a fake mustache, about to begin the most important undercover operation of his life. But let's rewind 3 weeks to where this story really begins. Marcus Thompson stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office at Titan Tech Solutions, watching the San Francisco fog roll in across the bay. At 42, he was one of the youngest CEOs in Silicon Valley and the first black CEO in his company's 30-year history. The view from the 38th floor usually calmed him, but not today, not after what his old friend and board member, James Chen, had just told him. "Marcus, something's not right in your executive team," James had said over their secure lunch meeting. "The numbers don't match the reports, projects are failing mysteriously, and there's talk. The kind of talk that makes me think some people aren't happy taking orders from—" He'd paused, uncomfortable. "From a black man," Marcus had finished for him. "Just say it, James." That conversation had sparked an idea so risky it could end his career if discovered. But if his suspicions were correct, staying ignorant could be even worse. The plan was simple but dangerous. He would go undercover as a temporary receptionist, using his college theater experience and some help from a professional makeup artist. The company's actual receptionist, Maria, was in on the plan. She'd take a paid vacation while reporting to Marcus through secure channels. The board approved the operation under strict confidentiality, understanding the potential PR nightmare if it leaked. What Marcus didn't expect was how quickly the facade would crumble. Not his disguise, but rather the carefully constructed image of his progressive company. His first day as Michael Turner, the temp receptionist, started normally enough. He'd arrived early wearing a simple button-down shirt and slacks, his face altered with subtle makeup and prosthetics that made him appear heavier and older. The fake mustache and glasses completed the transformation. He'd practiced his receptionist voice for weeks, slightly higher, more hesitant, less authoritative than his CEO tone. By 9 a.m., he'd already witnessed 3 troubling incidents. Sarah Johnson, his VP of marketing, had walked past the desk without acknowledging him. Normal enough, except she'd stopped to chat warmly with every white employee in the lobby. Robert Klein, head of operations, had thrown his coffee cup at the trash, missed, and walked away, muttering something about diversity hires not keeping the place clean enough. But it was the conversation he overheard between 2 senior managers near the elevator that really caught his attention. They were discussing an upcoming project lead position. "Davis is clearly the most qualified," one said, referring to James Davis, a black team leader with multiple patents to his name. "Yeah, but you know how it'll look," the other replied. "We already have Thompson at the top. We can't have too many of them in leadership. Gives the wrong impression to clients." Marcus's fingers had frozen over the keyboard, his heart pounding. He'd suspected bias in his company's promotion patterns, but hearing it stated so baldly, so casually, made his blood run cold. The real shock came at 2:30 p.m. when CFO William Parker stepped off the elevator with 2 board members Marcus didn't recognize. They were laughing about something, and as they passed the reception desk, Parker said loudly enough for Marcus to hear, "Trust me, gentlemen, by this time next quarter, we'll have a more traditional leadership structure in place." Marcus had almost broken character right there. What exactly did Parker mean? Was there a coup being planned? His mind raced to the mysterious project failures James had mentioned, the numbers that didn't add up. That evening, as he removed his disguise in the safe house apartment he'd rented for this operation, Marcus reviewed his notes with trembling hands. Day 1 had revealed more than he'd imagined possible. But he knew this was just the beginning. What he didn't know was that tomorrow would bring a discovery so shocking it would force him to question everything he thought he knew about his company, his colleagues, and the true price of success in corporate America. And somewhere in the building, security cameras were recording conversations that would change everything. Conversations he would discover 3 weeks later, bringing us full circle to where our story began. The second day of Marcus's undercover operation began with an unexpected discovery in the mailroom. While sorting through the morning deliveries, a task Maria had warned him would be part of his cover, he noticed something odd. Identical packages from a company he'd never heard of. Global Consulting Solutions, addressed to every member of his executive team except himself and James Chen. His instincts, honed from years of corporate warfare, screamed that something was wrong. Using the master key Maria had provided, he carefully opened one package addressed to William Parker, his CFO. Inside, he found what appeared to be routine consulting documents until he noticed the watermark, a tiny symbol he recognized from his cybersecurity briefings. The calling card of a notorious corporate espionage firm. Checking the morning mail, Michael? Marcus nearly dropped the document. Sarah Johnson, VP of Marketing, stood in the doorway, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Had she seen him with the open package? "Yes, Ms. Johnson," he replied in his practiced Michael voice, "just organizing everything for delivery." "How efficient," she said, studying him. "You know, you remind me of someone." Marcus's heart raced, but years of boardroom battles had taught him to keep his expression neutral. "I get that a lot," he laughed nervously. "Just one of those faces, I guess." Sarah lingered a moment longer before leaving, her heels clicking purposefully down the hallway. Marcus waited until the sound faded before letting out a shaky breath. He quickly photographed the documents with his secure phone and resealed the package. Later that morning, Marcus witnessed a scene that made his blood boil. James Davis, the talented team leader he'd overheard being discussed yesterday, was presenting a revolutionary new software architecture to a group of executives in the lobby conference room. Through the glass walls, Marcus could see Robert Klein, head of operations, deliberately scrolling through his phone, while others smirked and exchanged glances. After the presentation, Davis approached the reception desk, his shoulders slumped. "Rough meeting?" Marcus asked sympathetically. "They didn't even listen," Davis sighed. "Third time this month they've shut down my proposals without real consideration. Meanwhile, Ted Matthews gets approved for $1 million project with half the credentials and twice the budget." Marcus made a mental note to review all recent project approvals. But before he could respond, William Parker burst through the lobby doors, speaking loudly into his phone. "Yes, everything's on schedule. The board meeting next week will be perfect timing. Thompson won't know what hit him until it's too late." "Yes, we've got the evidence in place." Marcus felt his skin grow cold. "What evidence?" The answer came sooner than he expected. Around 3 p.m., he overheard a conversation between Sarah Johnson and Robert Klein near the water cooler, just within earshot of the reception desk. "The forensic accountants finished their report," Sarah whispered. "They found exactly what we needed them to find." "Beautiful," Robert replied. "Once we present evidence of financial mismanagement at the board meeting, combined with the anonymous complaints about Thompson's aggressive leadership style, it'll be an easy vote of no confidence." And the best part? The paper trail leads right to his personal accounts. By the time anyone realizes those transactions were backdated, it'll be too late. Marcus fought to keep his hands steady on the keyboard. They were framing him for embezzlement. But why go to such elaborate lengths? His answer came in the form of an encrypted email from Maria, who had been monitoring internal communications from her vacation. The message contained a single screenshot, a calendar invite for a meeting between his entire executive team and representatives from their biggest competitor, Quantum Dynamics. The pieces started falling into place. This wasn't just about racism, though that was clearly a factor. This was a hostile takeover attempt. Get rid of the black CEO under a cloud of scandal, tank the company's stock price, and sell to the competition at a premium. But Marcus's mounting horror was interrupted by the most chilling moment of the day. As he was preparing to leave, a young black intern approached the desk, her eyes red from crying. "Mr. Turner, I need to report something, but I'm scared." The intern Zara had been working in the financial department for 3 months. Through tears, she explained how she'd been asked to help organize some files by William Parker's assistant. Without realizing it, she'd helped create the backdated transactions they planned to use against Marcus. When I realized what they were doing and objected, they... She paused, trembling. They made it clear that people like us need to learn our place. They have photos of my little brother near his school. Said I needed to remember what matters most. Marcus felt something snap inside him. They weren't just coming after him. They were threatening a young intern's family to cover their tracks. This had gone far beyond corporate politics. But as he opened his mouth to reveal his true identity to Zara, a notification popped up on his computer screen. An all-staff email announcing an emergency board meeting moved up to tomorrow morning. They were accelerating their timeline. Marcus had hours, not days, to gather evidence and stop them. But with Sarah Johnson already suspicious of his identity and William Parker's threats against Zara showing how far they'd go to protect their scheme, one wrong move could be catastrophic. As the sun set over San Francisco, Marcus made a decision that would either save his company or destroy his career. But first, he needed to make 2 calls, one to James Chen and another to a number he'd hoped he'd never have to use. The private line of FBI Special Agent Constance Wu, who had investigated quantum dynamics for corporate espionage last year. The game was about to change, but in the dark corridors of Titan Tech Solutions, someone was watching his every move, waiting to strike. The early morning darkness still clung to the Titan Tech Solutions building as Marcus made his final preparations. He'd barely slept, spending most of the night coordinating with FBI agent Wu and James Chen. His disguise felt heavier today, the weight of what was to come pressing down on him like a physical force. Remember, Agent Wu had said during their midnight briefing, we need concrete evidence of the corporate espionage and the threats against Zara. The racism angle, while despicable, isn't enough for federal charges. Marcus checked his watch. 6:15 a.m. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 8 a.m., less than 2 hours to execute his plan. He'd arrived early to set up hidden cameras and microphones provided by the FBI. Technically legal since he was the CEO, but the evidence would be stronger if he could get them to incriminate themselves on the company's official security system. The elevator dinged. Marcus's heart jumped, but it was only the cleaning staff. No, wait, something was wrong. The cleaning crew never arrived before 7 a.m. "Good morning," a familiar voice called out. Sarah Johnson stepped around the cleaning cart, immaculately dressed despite the early hour. Or should I say, "Good morning, Mr. Thompson?" Marcus's blood ran cold. Behind Sarah, 2 large men in cleaning uniforms moved to block the exits. "I knew something was off about you," Sarah continued, approaching the reception desk. "You changed your voice, your walk, even your mannerisms. But you couldn't change your eyes, Marcus. They have the same intensity they had in the boardroom." "How long have you known?" Marcus asked, dropping the Michael voice. "Since yesterday afternoon, but we've suspected something was up since you supposedly left for Detroit." She perched on the edge of his desk, her smile predatory. "Did you really think we wouldn't have our own sources in the board? That we wouldn't be monitoring James Chen?" A soft click echoed through the lobby. William Parker emerged from the stairwell, along with Robert Klein and several other executives. "The great Marcus Thompson," Parker sneered, "playing dress-up as one of the little people. How noble. How predictable." "It's over, William." Marcus stood, his CEO authority returning to his voice despite his receptionist disguise. "I have evidence of everything. The fake transactions, the corporate espionage, the threats against Zara." "Zara?" Parker laughed. "Oh, you mean our loyal team member who's about to testify to the board about how she helped you create those fraudulent transactions? Amazing what people will do when their family's welfare is at stake." Marcus felt sick. They were going to force Zara to lie, to help destroy him. Just another black employee sacrificed for corporate greed. "You won't get away with this," Marcus said, reaching slowly under the desk where he'd hidden his phone. "We already have," Sarah replied. "In fact," the lobby lights suddenly went out, plunging everything into darkness. Emergency lights kicked in, casting eerie shadows across the faces of his would-be usurpers. "What the hell?" Robert Klein muttered. "Server room breach." A voice crackled over Parker's radio. Someone's accessing the mainframe. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Right on schedule. What did you do? Parker demanded, his composure cracking. Me? I've been right here, Marcus replied calmly. But you might want to check your emails. As if on cue, phones began buzzing throughout the lobby. Marcus watched as his executives' faces turned from confusion to horror. Every employee in Titan Tech Solutions was receiving detailed documentation of the conspiracy, the fake transactions, the corporate espionage evidence, the recordings of threats against Zara and her family. But more importantly, they were receiving proof that their own emails, messages, and files had been used to forge the evidence against Marcus. Impossible, Sarah whispered. We had everything encrypted. You did, a new voice said from the stairwell. But you forgot about me. Maria stepped into the lobby, her vacation clearly having been productive. Marcus's faithful receptionist was also one of the best ethical hackers in Silicon Valley, a fact his executives had never bothered to learn, too busy looking down on her position. Amazing what you can see from a reception desk, Maria continued, laptop in hand. All those confidential conversations you had right in front of me, never thinking I could understand what you were saying. Never wondering why a receptionist would have degrees in cybersecurity and computer science. The elevator dinged again. This time, FBI agent Wu stepped out, flanked by armed agents. William Parker, Sarah Johnson, Robert Klein, she announced, you're under arrest for corporate espionage, conspiracy, and extortion. As the agents moved in, Marcus finally peeled off his disguise. You were right about one thing, he said to his stunned executives. I am predictable. I predictably believe in justice. I predictably fight for what's right. And I predictably protect my people, all of my people. The sun was rising over San Francisco as the FBI led the conspirators away. In the growing light, Marcus saw Zara standing in the lobby entrance, tears in her eyes, but this time, they were tears of relief. James Chen appeared beside him. The board is waiting upstairs, he said. They've reviewed everything. Marcus nodded, straightening his borrowed security uniform. He had a company to rebuild, culture to change, and wrongs to right. But first, he had something important to do. He walked over to Zara. How would you like to help me create a real diversity and inclusion program for Titan Tech? One with actual power and oversight. Her eyes widened. Me? But I'm just an intern. No, Marcus smiled. You're the future of this company, if you want to be. As they walked toward the elevator together, Marcus caught his reflection in the lobby windows. The fake mustache was crooked, the makeup smeared. But his eyes, the eyes that had given him away, were clear and determined. The real work was just beginning. 6 months later, Marcus Thompson stood at his familiar spot by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office. But the view had changed. Not just the San Francisco skyline, though the winter fog had replaced summer's clear skies, but the company he saw reflected in the glass. The morning's Wall Street Journal sat on his desk, featuring a headline he'd fought hard to earn. Titan Tech Solutions leads tech industry in diversity and workplace culture reform. Next to it lay the latest company metrics. Employee satisfaction up 47%, productivity increased by 32%, and most importantly, a radical shift in hiring and promotion patterns that reflected genuine merit rather than implicit bias. A knock at his door brought a smile to his face. Come in, Maria. His former co-conspirator, now Chief Information Security Officer, entered with Zara beside her. In the months since the arrests, Zara had blossomed from a frightened intern into a confident leader, heading the company's new Diversity and Ethics Committee while finishing her MBA. The quarterly all-hands meeting is ready to begin, Maria announced. Though I still think you're crazy for doing this. Marcus grabbed his jacket. Sometimes crazy is exactly what we need. The main auditorium was packed. Every employee, from senior developers to maintenance staff, sat waiting. The atmosphere was different from 6 months ago. There was an energy, a sense of purpose that had replaced the former tension and fear. Marcus took the stage, remembering his first days as the undercover receptionist. The memory brought both pain and purpose to his voice as he began to speak. 6 months ago, I stood in our lobby wearing a fake mustache and borrowed clothes, watching our company's dark underbelly expose itself. Today, I stand here as myself, leading a very different Titan Tech Solutions. He clicked to the first slide. William Parker, Sarah Johnson, and Robert Klein's corporate photos. Our former executives are serving federal sentences for their crimes. But their greatest crime wasn't the corporate espionage or the attempted hostile takeover. It was perpetuating a culture of discrimination that wasted human potential and betrayed our company's values. Next slide. Titan Tech's new organizational chart, dramatically different from 6 months ago. We've implemented the most aggressive corporate culture reform in tech history. Every leadership position is now filled through blind evaluation processes. Salaries are transparent and standardized. Promotion criteria are public and measurable. He gestured to Maria and Zara in the front row. We've learned that talent doesn't look like what we thought it did. Our new CISO was just a receptionist. Our ethics committee head was just an intern. We had brilliant minds right in front of us, but we were too blinded by prejudice to see them. The next slides showed the company's improved metrics, but Marcus clicked past them quickly to reach the announcement he'd been waiting to make. Today, I'm announcing the Thompson Initiative. We're allocating $50 million to fund tech education in underserved communities. But more importantly, we're changing our entire recruitment and advancement model. Every employee, from maintenance to management, will have access to training, mentorship, and growth opportunities. Because innovation doesn't care what you look like or where you started. It only cares what you can do. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces, faces of all colors, ages, and backgrounds. But the Thompson Initiative isn't just about Titan Tech. Starting next quarter, we're offering our diversity and inclusion framework as open source software. Any company can adopt our blind hiring tools, our promotion algorithms, our salary standardization systems. Because this isn't about competitive advantage, it's about changing an industry. The applause was thunderous, but Marcus raised his hand for silence. There's one more thing. In the spirit of continuing what we started 6 months ago, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the fake mustache he'd worn as a receptionist. Every quarter, I'll be spending 1 week working in different entry-level positions throughout the company. Not as CEO, not as Marcus Thompson, but as a regular employee. Because the view from the top is important, but the view from the ground is essential. The audience erupted in cheers and laughter. As Marcus looked out at his transformed company, he caught Zara's eye. She was crying again, but these tears reflected something new. Hope. Later that evening, as the sun set over San Francisco, Marcus returned to his office to find an unexpected visitor. James Chen sat waiting, holding a familiar security uniform. "Ready for next week?" James asked, tossing him the uniform. "I hear maintenance department could use an extra hand." Marcus caught the uniform, grinning. "You know, some people think I'm crazy for continuing these undercover stints now that the crisis is over. And what do you think?" Marcus walked to his window one last time, watching his diverse, energized workforce heading home for the day. "I think sometimes you have to become someone else to remember who you really are." He turned to his friend. "And sometimes you have to see through different eyes to help others see the truth." James nodded, understanding. "So what name are you using next week?" Marcus smiled, fingering the fabric of the maintenance uniform. "I'm thinking David Turner. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" In the reflection of the darkening window, CEO Marcus Thompson straightened his tie, ready for whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. Because he'd learned the most valuable lesson of all. True leadership isn't about the view from the top. It's about being willing to start from the bottom, again and again, until everyone has the chance to rise.